wasn't a matter of me working harder, working more, burning myself out. It was a matter of me shifting my mindset and what I thought I was capable of doing.
Welcome back to the Happiness and Progress podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Craig. I'm an Emmy award-winning journalist, a mom, wife, and you know what I like to say, just a person looking for more joy in the everyday. This podcast is brought to you by the Mail Tribune. You can find more podcasts at mailtribune.com. I am so excited to introduce you to Katie Dodd. She is a geriatric dietitian, writer, speaker, consultant, mentor, and leader. She spent 13 years working as a home care dietitian for the VA before recently becoming a full-time entrepreneur. She is the owner of Katie Dodd Nutrition LLC, the founder of the Geriatric Dietitian blog and High Calorie Recipes food blog, and the host of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. Today, she shares her entrepreneurial journey, how important mindset has been as she has gone from step one to where she is now. And she even shares some of her mantras that she turns to often. She talks about why staying grateful and uncomfortable is so important as you chase after your dreams, no matter what they are, whether it is blogging or something like that, something business related, or what she did recently, which was dance in a nonprofit fundraising event. I hope that you take some lessons about stretching toward your dreams from this conversation. Let's get to it. Katie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here.
All right, let's go back to the beginning of your side job journey. Tell me what happened that you had this idea.
Sure. So I have been a registered dietitian for 13 years. It was about 7 years ago that I started side hustling. And my story is a little bit random. It was kind of like just a random occurrence that happened. I was at a nutrition conference in Texas, and I met a dietitian who was from Medford, Oregon. I don't meet a lot of dietitians at these big events who are from my town.
Right.
So we made this connection, and on the flight back, I saw the same person, but I didn't remember who she was because I met so many different people at this event. So I ended up looking at her. I'm like, who is this human? Now, there are no direct flights from Medford, Oregon to pretty much anywhere. Right. So we had to get a connecting flight. In the connecting flight, I ended up seeing this person again. I'm like, who is this person? I recognize them. So I ended up sitting next to this person on my flight. And as we were chatting, I found out she was an entrepreneurial dietitian. She started her own business in the 80s and eventually transitioned her business online and was this amazing entrepreneur, and her business was based in writing. And I was just so obsessed with her and what she was doing. I asked her, is there any way I could job shadow you or learn more about writing? I would love to improve my own writing skills. And she said, sure, send me an email. In about a week, she gave me her business card. A week later, sent her an email, and she saw my credentials. I'm a board certified specialist in gerontological nutrition, which means I specialize in nutrition for older adults. She does continuing education papers for dietitians. So, you read the paper, you learn, and then you get continuing ed to continue to maintain your license. And she had someone who had just dropped out for her writing a paper on geriatric nutrition. So she saw my credentials like, hey, Katie, would you like to maybe take a stab at updating this paper? Now, up until then, I had done a lot of volunteering in the field. I still volunteer a lot within my profession at the state and the national level. And of course, I'm like, sure, I'll do it, thinking it's volunteer work because that's so what I'm used to. Mm-hmm. And then I got the contract, and she was going to pay me for this. And it sounds kind of silly when I look back, but it was just something where I would have done the work just to learn and to grow. But the fact that I was getting paid to do it was like, oh, this opened a whole new door for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I can get paid to do all these fun things that I've been volunteering to do for free for so long. So I ended up doing kind of like freelance writing for them for years. I started looking for other opportunities to kind of make money on the side. I ended up starting doing webinars, working with brands and all kinds of different work, which became such a blessing because as a mom in the United States where we don't have paid maternity leave, trying to figure out how am I going to stay home and, be able to pay the bills. So starting a side hustle happened kind of really randomly. It wasn't something it was just something I fell into, but it became a blessing because it gave me the financial buffer to stay home with my kiddos for a little bit longer on maternity leave. And it just open the doors to so many more things when you are a young professional struggling to make ends meet. Just having the extra income was such a blessing. So that's kind of how I got started with side hustling.
Mm-hmm. What I love about this is there's so much we can learn from this, even just making those connections, having, the courage to speak up and say, hey, can I learn from you? And then also volunteering within your profession. Those are so many things we can learn from when we're just getting started on a side hustle. Looking back at that, old Katie who was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get paid for this. And now what have you been able to accomplish in all of these years side hustling and being an entrepreneur?
The game changed for me a few years ago. It was actually in spring of 2019. I went to a nutrition conference and there were 3 amazing entrepreneurial dietitians. There's a theme here. I keep meeting these awesome dietitians. I'm like, how do I be more like you? And when they were at this conference, they were talking about all kinds of things, like how to build your brand, talking about social media. One person was talking about corporate wellness. So dietitians providing nutrition services to businesses. And so there was a dietitian who spoke directly to the audience and said, they are looking for you. She was talking about how businesses are looking for dietitians to really serve their employees. But when she said that, I swear she spoke into my soul. They are looking for you. And it's like, I don't even know who they are and what they're looking for, but they are looking for me. I must be doing something. So I think at that conference, what was unique for me was I realized that I was an entrepreneur. Now, up until that point, I was just doing these kind of contract gigs of writing for other people, doing webinars, doing work for other people. And I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur because most dietitians work with patients one-on-one. Now, I had a full-time job doing home care, and I work with patients in my job, and I had zero interest in working with them outside of my full-time job. So I never really identified as an entrepreneur up until this point. When I was at that conference, my dad was with me. He comes with me to all my conferences, and we were going to the Space Needle that day. I remember being on the train from this conference to the Space Needle, starting to dream up, what is my business going to look like? What am I going to do? I am an entrepreneur and I'm going to do something on my own. I'm going to start a business. I just have no idea what it looks like. Now, a couple of months later, I ended up discovering the world of blogging. Now, up until then, I always thought that a blog was kind of like your personal journal where you would write online, like what you ate, what you did, your mom read it, your dad read it, your neighbor read it. But I didn't realize that people actually built a legitimate business based around blogging. Mm-hmm. So I ended up taking a course to learn search engine optimization. This is how we actually get our website found online. So when people go to search engines like Google, if they search something related to a topic I'm blogging about, my goal is to get my website on the first page. So that way people click and go to my website. So I learned all about blogging. I was like, yes, this is something I want to do. I can do it on my own time. I'm already pretty good at writing, and it doesn't require working with other humans. So I dove into blogging, and I started my first blog called the Geriatric Dietitian. And that was because that's what I did. I was a geriatric dietitian. I provided nutrition care for older adults. So I started this blog, and blogging is a long-term game. It's not like you push publish and all this traffic's coming and you're making money, but I knew it was possible, and I started putting in the work. I started growing my blog, growing my traffic. I added additional streams of income where I was making money through selling handouts, digital goods, e-cookbooks, ebooks. I ended up creating a course that people can buy and just it's like pre-recorded and they could watch and learn. I had affiliate links on my website, so I would make money if people clicked on a link, like for Amazon. I would make a small, tiny commission. And then I also 17 months later, I was able to qualify for a high-end ad network, which meant I had ads on my website. So at that point, I was starting to make really significant passive income on my website, meaning I wasn't exclusively trading time for money. Like before, when I did a contract, I would do the work and then get paid when I was done. With this, I might only work maybe 5 to 7 hours on my blog at this point, but it's still bringing in money on the back end, and I'm not having to always work. So after I had so much success with this blog, number one, I was able to reach lots of people, share a topic I'm super passionate about, and then able to make money. I was like, this is so amazing. I need to teach other people how to do this. So around the same time, I did get connected with a business coach. So really learning business skills. So not approaching this as a hobby, but treating this like a real business. And so I started teaching other dietitians how to do the same thing, how to create a blog, how to grow traffic, how to make money blogging, and how to make a real legitimate business based in blogging. So those are the main things that I would say I do right now. Is I am a blogger. I am now a business coach. I teach other dietitians how to blog. I run a mastermind where I really help dietitians on a higher level to kind of level up their online business. And I did start a food blog. I started that. It's doing pretty good. It's working its way up to start making money, but I've just built this whole world that's online, and something that just started because I was at a conference a few years ago and was like, oh, wow, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to start my own business. Little fun side note. I actually went back to the same conference about a month ago. It was in a different location in Washington, and it was the same conference. It's the first time we've met since the pandemic because, after 2019, we never met again in 2020.
Yeah.
So this was our first time meeting it in person. And I actually got to speak on stage at that event as an entrepreneur.
How
speaking
cool.
speaking about side hustles for dietitians. So it was so cool to see that, how far things changed, being someone in the audience just a few years prior thinking, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, to be on the stage showing other people how to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's people that walked away from that thinking she spoke to me. So that's very, very cool. What has been the scariest thing about this journey?
Oh, I think one of the things about being an entrepreneur is it involves risk. And I've always been very risk averse. I like having plans for my plans and having safety nets, and entrepreneurship has pushed me so far, has pushed me so far outside of my comfort zone. I will say I take risk, but I still have plans. But I think this whole journey, I will share kind of one thing that happened to me last year was I was at an event. I mentioned I have a business coach, and it was about this time last year, he ended up offering a year-long mastermind for $30,000, which at the time in my side hustle, because at this time I'm still a full-time employee, like this whole journey I've been a full-time, and that was about as much money I made in the entire previous year in my side hustle, which I thought was pretty good. And this idea of investing $30,000 into a year of business mastermind was terrifying. That was probably the scariest choice I made, because number one, I didn't have all the money up front. Number two, that is a ton of money. And number three, just that fear of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is like big. So I did invest that money. I joined a business mastermind. I put it on a credit card because I didn't have the money. But I will say, my business coach always says, when you pay attention. And I paid a lot of attention. I actually paid off my credit card before interest hit. Within a month, paid it off in full.
Wow.
So I managed to show up and do the work. A few months after that, I was at my business mastermind in-person meeting. And during that meeting, we always have an ask for the community. Like, what is your biggest ask? How can we help you? And my ask was, how can I continue to make my program better and serve dietitians better? And the takeaway from that was everyone telling me I needed to leave my full-time job. Now, I worked for the federal government. I had a really good paying job, one that I actually really loved. I had a great boss. I was making good money, and I had a pension. Like, I had plans. I was going to work at that job until I was 68 and a half and retire with my pension. And this idea of leaving my job was something I just hadn't considered. Even when I invested that big amount of money, in my head, I was like, well, maybe in a few years, I'll think about leaving my job. But here we are 3 months later, and I'm in this place where everyone's saying, Katie, you need to leave your job. Like, you're going to burn out and fry at some point because you can't do it all. And this is kind of what you're made to do. So this is how you're going to serve your audience better, by serving them full time. So I didn't say it out loud at that moment. This was in September of 2021, but I did say in my head that day, I just made this decision that 2021 was going to be the last year that I ever worked a full-time job. And the next day I did tell some people kind of what I was thinking. I was in Florida for this event. Again, no direct flights to Medford. So 2 flights with a layover, plenty of time to make my plans. I made a plan on what would it take for me to leave my full-time job? What would it take for me to sustain being a full-time entrepreneur? And just committed to making it happen. Just at the very beginning of December, I ended up turning in my notice for my full-time job. And at the end of December, I worked my very last day. So I kept true to that promise that 2021 was going to be the last year I ever worked at VA, my full-time job. So I ended up leaving my full-time job. And as the time of this recording, I'm in my 5th month of being a full-time entrepreneur. So
that was really, really scary, and it comes with risk. And 5 months out, how are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. It's one of those things where sometimes things can feel really scary. And I'm not saying just like jump off the deep end, but if you have a plan, if you've been building up things, if you have the mindset to believe in yourself and know that you'll make things work, it'll be okay. You should take the risk, because this whole fear I had about leaving my job, I will say I had a lot of excuses on, well, what about my health insurance? What about this? What about that? And it was really funny being in my mastermind, because all of these kind of like blocks I had in my head, they didn't see them. And they were able to lovingly tear down all of these limiting beliefs that I had in my mind about why I couldn't be a full-time entrepreneur and why I couldn't succeed. And I will say, from the time I left my full-time job, it took me 28 days to generate as much income as I made in an entire year at my full-time job. So
Wow.
I think in that, this whole fear of like, oh, I can't do it. And then a month later, it's like, well, I
did it.
This probably was a good decision. And I will share, one of the best things about being a full-time entrepreneur is being more present with my family. I have a vision board of, it's actually on my wall, and on it, I have all these things I want to achieve. And one of them, I actually have a clip art of a dad dropping his kids off at school and waving to them. And when I worked my full-time job, I worked from 6:30 to 5 o'clock, 4 days a week. So I was never able to drive my kids to school. And it sounds like such a little thing, but to me, like, that was something I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to drive my kids to school if I wanted to, have that time with them, those conversations. It was something I couldn't do because I had a full-time job unless I took time off work. So that was actually something on my vision board, something that I wanted to achieve. Also, there was a picture of someone turned in their letter of resignation. Again, that was like supposed to be a long-term goal, but so I ended up, it was really sweet. My boss, once I turned in my notice, he took a selfie with me, with us like holding my letter of resignation. So when I got home, I printed that out, cut it out, and put it on my vision board over that picture I had. And then the next day, or I guess it was next Monday after I left my job, I had my kids to school. And I have a picture of my daughter, Emily, waving outside the car window at the drop-off line. And I will say, my son, he's 11. He's way too cool for school. There was no way he was going to wave his mama in the school drop-off line. So he's not in the picture, but he's there in spirit. So when I got home, printed off that picture, put it over that picture on my vision board. And I think for me, that was the best moment of this entire journey, to have that moment that seems so small and insignificant, I think, to people that maybe do it all the time or don't even think about it, to be able to have that opportunity to drop my kids off at school and have them not be an after school program and come home and be with me, and just to be more present with my kiddos and my family while my kids are still in the house, because time goes so fast when we have kids. We blink and my son's 11. I don't know what's going on. So I think through all of my entrepreneurial journey, risk has been huge, but having the ability to be more present with my family and have time and financial freedom has been beyond a blessing, like beyond a blessing. And honestly, the life I'm living right now is even beyond the wildest dreams that I ever had. I always tell people in my program to like dream big and have audacious goals, like these big, scary goals. And I always thought I did. And I did have big, scary goals, but I feel like right now I'm actively living this dream that I still didn't realistically think was possible.
Yeah. It makes me emotional seeing how happy you are and this massive smile you have as you talk about this ability to be able to drop off your kids and to be present with them and really live the life that you want to live and that works for you. How you mentioned your vision board, how big of a deal is the mindset as an entrepreneur?
So mindset is everything. I'm pretty obsessed with mindset these days. One of my business coaches told me with everything in life, it's 80% mindset, 20% mechanics. And what that means is the 20% is doing the thing. So in my case, it's being a dietitian. It's doing what I do. The 80% is the belief that I can do it. I will say the longer I've been in the entrepreneurial game, I almost believe it's like 99% mindset, 1% mechanics.
Yeah, right.
Because I think my entire journey of being a full-time employee to becoming a side hustler, to becoming a business owner, side hustler, to leaving my full-time job to where I'm at now, it wasn't a matter of me working harder, working more, burning myself out. It was a matter of me shifting my mindset and what I thought I was capable of doing. For me, that was being in a business mastermind, surrounding myself with other people who believed in me more than I did, and having guidance in the area that I wanted to do. So I wasn't just like going into it blind. I was learning from people who came before me. So, yeah.
you now coach people as they're beginning their journeys and wherever they are in their journeys. What do you find is something that most often holds people back as they're just getting started out?
I think it's the mindset, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's 100% the mindset. We get so in our heads and we start thinking like, who do I think I am? You know, I can't possibly do this. I see this works for them, but it would never work for me. And it's just this, it's all mindset. And I think that's one of the reasons I got into coaching, because I've grown so much. And I will say, even just my confidence in myself, I've always said like business coaching has kind of been like counseling too. Like I've just grown so much in my confidence in who I am. And so I want to help other people to be that person who believes in them enough until they catch up and start believing in themselves. Because when it comes to entrepreneurship and really anything in life, whatever your dreams are, you can do it and you can achieve it. It's just about believing enough in yourself, finding the right tools and resources to get there, and being patient enough in the journey and being willing to pivot and twist and churn, recognizing that sometimes the path to our dreams doesn't look exactly what we think it will look like. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not better, but if there's something we really want, we can achieve it. And I feel like there's all these like quotes I used to think were so cheesy, like what you believe you will achieve. And now I'm like, oh, those are so good. It's so true, because that's been such a game changer in my life. It's just my mindset. And it's just, when I see other people and they have those doubts, I'm just like, oh, you can do it. It's just breaking through that barrier can be really hard for people.
If you ever have a thought sneak in that's like who do you think you are? Whoa, that's too big. Any of those, how do you respond?
Oh, yes. So I think for me, there's a lot of things. A lot of dietitians, we are perfectionists. And I used to wear perfectionism as a badge of honor. I used to be so proud of it, but I started recognizing it was actually a weakness that was holding me back. It was keeping me stuck. I had to have all my ducks in a row. So I actually have a lot of mantras I tell myself now. So one of them is done is better than perfect. So recognizing that once I actually start doing things, I will continue to get better. I also have, because blogging is such a long-term game, and it's, I feel like there's this excitement when you start a blog of, yes, I'm going to have success. And then you get in that lull thinking, this is never going to work. I'm never going to get traffic. Who do I think I am? And so during that lull, I ended up creating, I don't think I'm ever going to change it, but I have a screensaver on my phone. It says patience, progress, consistency. And during that season, I just reminded myself to be patient. My dreams were possible. I just had to wait for it. I had to focus on progress, putting one foot in front of the other, recognizing that maybe for me, I was a full-time employee. I didn't have a ton of time, but even these small steps add up over time. And then just being consistent and showing up. So I think for me, having a lot of mantras, a lot of things I tell myself, having a vision board and a strong why behind why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because when I would hit those struggles and those doubts, it's like my why's my kiddos. And so that would keep me going through it all, because I had, with time going so fast and my son being 11, I'm like, I'm going to blink and he's going to be 18 and I need to do this now. And then also having a community of people I could reach out to and share when I'm struggling. And again, they just build me right back up, because all the doubts I have, like, they're not true. And other people can tell me that, and they know they're not true. And I always say, like, our brains can be so mean to we can be so mean to ourselves, all these things that we say, and they really are lies. And it's just a matter of like getting those little voices out of our head and recognizing sometimes they come back, and that's okay. It's just part of being human, but having those systems in place to really support you kind of long-term.
Yes. I love that. And I think when you have a supportive group around you, when your brain's not showing up for you, you can rely on the things that they've said. Wait, so-and-so said I can. And then that can kind of get you off and get your brain back where you want it to be. And I love that you mentioned that we're human. I always say that because we can't control those thoughts, like them coming in. We can control our response to it though. So I love that. Yeah. You told our mutual friend, Lindsay McPhail, Outsider Coffee, for anyone listening who wants to go check it out. You told her, and she posted about this maybe yesterday or the day before. You said to her, you need to stay grateful and uncomfortable. So tell me about this, because, I'm type A. I like to have plans for my plans as well. And sometimes the space of being uncomfortable is like too uncomfortable for someone like me. So tell me how you can pull that off, that gratitude and being uncomfortable at the same time.
Yeah, that was actually something my business coach told me. He said, Katie, if you want to continue having success, you need to stay grateful and uncomfortable. So one thing I think I'm really good at is gratitude. I do practice gratitude. I write down things I'm grateful for every day. And I think gratitude's a big part of who I am. Even like when I think of this life I'm living, how I get to be a full-time entrepreneur and set my own schedule and be present with my kids, I get teary-eyed still. And I'm like, I don't know if that feeling will ever go away. So I feel like gratitude is something that I'm pretty good at. But what he told me was stay uncomfortable, which like you is something I'm not good with. But as I've become an entrepreneur,
I'm uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. Okay.
yeah. But the thing is it's in the discomfort that we grow. As I've grown from being someone who was just kind of dabbling with side hustling to I ended up my side hustle was making 6 figures before I left my full-time job. And all of these steps that I've taken along the journey, I mentioned how it was working on my mindset. And a lot of it was pushing myself into discomfort. My business coach would tell me to do things. And the first thought was that rage of anxiety of I can't possibly do this, but I would do it anyways.
Yeah.
and it really countered a lot of what I probably would have shown up and done before. But as I was working on my mindset and paying to be in a business mastermind, I was going to do the work. So I think discomfort, it's not like complete terror. There's like your bubble of comfort. Right outside that bubble is the discomfort. And then beyond that is that complete terror, anxiety, that like disabling, like I'm not in there. That is not the goal to be there, but just pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone, because it is in the discomfort that we grow with everything. I think even of the Rogue Valley Dancing with the Stars. So this is an event that I know you're very familiar with, and I was asked to participate in it. And I remember when Matt, who runs Sparrows Club, so the Rogue Valley Dancing with the Stars is a fundraiser for an amazing charity called Sparrows Club. And Matt Sampson, who runs the club, sent me a text message saying, good news, we're bringing back this amazing event called the Rogue Valley Dancing with the Stars. I'd been several times. And I'd like for you to be a dancer in our hip hop squad. Now, when I first got that, I was completely terrified. I was like, I'm not a dancer. I've told myself my entire life I'm not a dancer. I can't tell you how many people I've told I am not a dancer. And so my first thought was no. But then I was thinking about from a business perspective, how I always tell people like, you can do anything. Mindset is everything. Anything is possible. And I'm like, how could I say that, but then not believe this for myself? So it was about 10 minutes of me wrestling with this whole, no way, I should do it. Oh God, no. And so I ended up actually texting Matt back and I told him, that sounds awful. I will do it. And so it was something where I pushed myself completely outside of my comfort zone. I feel like that was almost bordering like beyond just discomfort.
Yeah,
right. A little bit of terror, but I think for me, I'm always looking for opportunities, not just in business, but even for my personal self at this point, because every time I push myself to discomfort, I grow so much as a person and I experience so much joy. I mean, this event, it turns out I am a dancer. I danced with my hip hop squad. We did awesome. It was probably one of the funnest things I've ever done. And had I not been in the state of mindset of like, just be uncomfortable, I would have missed out on this amazing opportunity. Yeah. So I think gratitude is huge in discomfort. And again, not terrifying yourself, not like you need to go talk to your counselor about this, but like just that little level of discomfort of doing things that you feel like you can't do, or those little things that your brain has always told you can't do. Yeah. And it was this great experience for me too, to recognize kind of these lies I've always told myself unintentionally. And I think a lot of us do that. We have these barriers or these limits that we put on ourselves and we don't even think about it. They're like subconscious limiting beliefs. And so for me, it was like, I'm not a dancer. And it seems like such a small thing, but I started realizing how it showed up in bigger ways. As we were learning our dance, I realized another lie I told myself was, I don't have a good memory. And just all these little ways that my brain has been so mean to me. And I'm like, what? Why am I saying all these negative things about me? I can do anything. Forget that. I'm reading a book right now called Limitless by Jim Quick. And
I got to read that. That's on my list.
Yeah, it's so good. In it, he talks about there's no such thing as a good memory and a bad memory. There's a trained memory and an untrained memory. Yeah. So it was perfect timing to be reading this book, because I just started realizing all these limiting beliefs and realizing like, man, what other areas in my life am I holding myself back because of stories I've always told myself that really have no basis. And sometimes I don't even realize I'm saying it to myself. So discomfort can be really great for our growth, not just business wise, but even just personally and in all the ways in our life.
I did Dancing with the Rogue Valley Stars several years ago too. Yeah. And I realized I had all these lies I'd been telling myself too, like, you know, I'm just a boy mom. I'm not fancy. I'm not a princess kind of person. And then I had to do the waltz. And so it like opened up this whole world of like, wait, I can do this. I can be, you know, fancy and wear a princess dress and be fine. And that fits well with me. I also think that as we get a little uncomfortable, our capacity for that grows, and then we get a little more uncomfortable, and then our capacity grows. So that's not uncomfortable anymore. So before you know it, we may be doing something that would have previously been terrifying.
Yes.
That is no longer terrifying. It's just a little uncomfortable. So I love everything you said there, and think that's a great place for a lot of people to start. If someone's listening to this and thinking like, oh my gosh, 30,000 for a mastermind, that's like how much I make in a year. And that's our only income, what we're living on. Or if they're thinking, oh my gosh, she made 6 digits before she left her job, and they're not feeling like they can relate. What would be your advice to them as far as making goals and moving forward anyway?
I think part of it is we like to compare our current journey at people. Like we look at people like, oh my gosh, I want to do what they're doing. I want to be like them, but we're looking at them kind of midway through the game and not at the beginning. And we're comparing our beginning to their mid game. And so I will say I have a brand. It's called Dietitian Side Hustle. That's where I teach all dietitians about these things. And I actually share on my website income reports on how much money I made, how much money I spent for the last 3 years. And I like doing that because you can look back and see how, gosh, in 2019, I was making $7,000 in my side hustle, which I thought was pretty amazing at the time.
Yeah.
And you can see the progression of my journey as I set bigger goals, more uncomfortable goals, things that really push me outside of my zone, my comfort zone. And I loved what you said about how as we continue to push ourselves outside of discomfort, that level changes for us. Mm-hmm. I will share in 2019, when I created my blog, I took a course and it was $300 and I didn't want to invest the $300. I was like, I could just figure out how to do this online for free. And I will tell you, had I done that, I would have done everything wrong. Mm-hmm. And I probably would have burnt out and never finished my blog because I would have gone, it would have taken me way too much time and money to fix all what I had done. But actually our mutual friend, Lindsay McPhail, was the one who encouraged me to take this course. She said, this person who's teaching the course is a dietitian, and you're a dietitian. She's doing what you want to do. You need to take the course. So I was like, okay, Lindsay, took this course. And it's really funny how just 2 years later, where I was struggling to, buy a $300 course, how I bought a $30,000 program. Yeah. So I think it's recognizing where are we right now and what are those small goals we can set, the small things we could do, slowly pushing ourselves outside of that comfort zone, recognizing that over time we look back, it's like, I look back at some of the stuff that was so terrifying for me, or some of the goals that I had that I thought were so audacious, so crazy. Mm-hmm. And now I kind of giggle because it's like, I remember that year I had made, $7,000. And my goal for the next year, my side hustle was to make $25,000. And that felt like such a big, audacious goal. And it felt so terrifying. I surpassed that goal, but now I'm in a position just a couple of years later where I'm able to make more than that in 1 month in my business. And I'm like, wow,
so cool.
How far things have come in my mindset. So all that to say is just recognize where we are right now and focusing on the patient's progress and consistency. And if there's something you really want, be patient. I mean, most people give up right on the other side of success. So be patient, recognize things take a while. Focus again on progress, putting one foot in front of the other. And it's amazing how even in my journey, I would say my real business journey has only been 3 years of me really diving into business, which isn't long in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
And it's like they say, what is it? The days are long, but the years are short. That's true with everything. So just being consistent, focusing on progress, and then also just being flexible, having grace with yourself, enjoying the journey and not putting a lot of pressure on yourself to just recognize that your dreams are possible. It's just going to take a while and it might look different than what you thought.
Love that. That's such great advice. Last question, the one I ask everyone, what is your number one tip for more joy in the good, the bad, and the in-between?
Oh, goodness. I think my number one tip is gratitude. Let's go back to gratitude. I think it's just being grateful for what you have in whatever season you're going through. And even if it's something so small, I mentioned I practice gratitude. And what I mean by that is every day I write down things that I'm grateful for. And for me, that's not only grounding, but it helps me see the good in every day because tomorrow's not promised. I can get hit by a bus on my way to pick up my kids today. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in our life. And so I don't want to focus, even though I have big, crazy goals, I don't want to spend so much time focusing on when I hit those goals, or that's when the joy is going to happen. I'm focusing on the joy in the journey and the joy in every single day, because there really is joy. And even when we're not having the best day, even when we're having a hard day, there's still little good things that you have in those days that you can pull. And I actually write them down in a journal. So at the end of every week, I actually write down all of those positive things too, just to really enforce, like, what were the amazing things that happened this week?
Thank you for coming on the podcast. I've really, really appreciated our time. And I am really excited for people to be able to hear all of this advice you have.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I was able to be on. It's like, I might have told you that your podcast is the first one I ever listened to. So.
Oh, thank you. I love that. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Katie. You can find all of her information in show notes. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. And if you haven't, please rate this podcast. It really, really helps me to stay in the top of the searches when people are looking for wellness podcasts. I appreciate you being here on Happiness in Progress.